Hello. In this video, we're going to take a look at an automation that works with a form that has multiple instances. And we will see how you can manipulate that form and target different instances of that form. So I have here an application. It's an agent application. So let's say I'm a contact center agent, and this is the app that I use whenever somebody calls me, right? And as you can see right now, I have an incoming call from a specific phone number. And here on the left side, I have a form that was automatically displayed whenever I got this incoming call. So I will answer this call for now. So I'm talking with this customer right now. You can see here the details of the customer, right? You can see the name of the customer, the caller ID that matches the caller ID that I have here. And also, if you haven't noticed, the form actually appeared before I answered the call. So let's emulate another call coming in. Now it's a different phone number. Again, the call came in. I have again, the details of the customer. I can read through stuff, for example, the last invoice number, the payment status, and I can choose to answer that call if I want to. And now I'm talking with Dan, so it's the phone number that ends in 0944. Being within a call center, I can choose to put Dan on hold, and then I can switch to another customer. In this case, I will switch to, well, actually, I got another call coming in. Let me ignore this one. And I will switch to the other customer, so Cruella. Okay, as I do that, you see that the form with Cruella's details actually went into focus. And as I switch between these two, the current call data actually is brought into focus. These two forms are identical. Basically, it's the same form but two different instances. Now, the other thing that you've seen earlier is that whenever I have a call coming in, yes, we show the details. Now it's Karen that is calling me. And if I choose to ignore that call, Karen's details went away. And whenever I hang up, nothing happens because I don't want to lose the customer data, okay? But then I can choose to close the customer details automatically. So with that, let's see how this automation was built. Okay, we're going to go back into Studio here. And this automation is pretty basic. It has a form. It's the customer data form. Let me actually open it so that you can see it. It's not very complex. It has, this field is where the first name and last name are going to go. It defaults to loading, show the caller ID and all the details, plus some actions. For example, maybe I want to change the password, reset 5G, and so on, right? For this particular, the particular customer that I'm talking to. Then I have 3 UI automation triggers that are automatically, these XAMLs are automatically being triggered on various events. So let's take one of them, on incoming call. So whenever I get an incoming call, what's going to happen? So the trigger is linked to the incoming call label. Well, whenever that text shows on the screen, this XAML is going to be automatically triggered. So I have a right line. This is just for debugging purposes, obviously. And then what I do is I get the phone number of that particular caller. And then with the phone number, I will show the form, the customer data form. In the arguments here, you can see here that I have the caller ID is going to be caller ID colon and then the actual caller. Okay. And I choose to continue the workflow execution. So I will show the form and then the flow will continue to execute. And then I will go and retrieve the customer data. In my case, this being a demo app, I will go to the UiPath data services and I will query data from that particular customer. That's why you are seeing the loading. It took a few milliseconds up to 1 second to actually load the data. And this is what's happening here. So I'm loading the data. I'm querying the data, and then I will set form values. This is another activity that I'm using, and I will set customer name, invoice number, and payment status to the right values. And then I will say change form properties. In this case, I set the title to the name of the customer. But then the question is, okay, we have multiple instances of the same form. If I have multiple calls coming in, I accept them, and then there's another call coming in. How do you identify which which form corresponds to which customer that is calling in. Well, all of the form activities, let's take show form, for example. If I go to show advanced options, they have this property called instance name. An instance name is something that will uniquely identify that particular form instance. And for me, the instance name is going to be the caller. Okay, this is how I identify. So the caller, which means the phone number of the person that's calling me, that's going to be associated, uniquely associated with one particular form. And this is where I'm setting it, right? But then if I have multiple forms showing at the same time, when I do set form values for this particular form, customer data, if I go here under advanced options, you see here that I reuse that caller name, well, caller ID, right? So what that means is I want to set the form values, I want to set the first name, last name, and so on for the form that is called customer data, but the instance has to be the one linked to that particular caller, right? So this is what happens when I get an incoming call. Let's see what happens when I choose to ignore that call, right? So if I click the ignore button, all I'm doing is actually something pretty simple. I will say I want to close the form, the customer data form, and the instance that I want to close is the last caller. Caller is actually a global variable that I'm using so that it makes all this communication easier, right? But this is the same thing. It's the phone number of the one calling us. And then lastly, on current call, this actually gets called when I switch between callers. I put somebody on hold and then I move to the next line. So whenever I do that, what we do is again get the phone number of the person that is currently calling us, or that is currently on the main line, and then I will bring form to front. Okay, which form? Again, I'm using here. Let me make this simple. I'm using here the caller as the name of the instance. So I will, out of maybe 5 different forms that I have displaying various customer information, I want to bring to front the form that is that matches the current user that I'm talking to right now. And that's it, really. This is the whole automation, right? So basically, one form and three triggers based on 3 different events. And then I'm using show form and bring to front and set form values and set form properties as well. I'm using those activities to change things like the title, the actual data within the form, or bringing it to front. And remember, I'm reusing this concept, the instance name, so that I can target a specific form that I'm working with, right? And by the way, if I had form triggers, a form trigger, whenever something happens in a form, for example, I clicked a button, the form trigger is going to output with the trigger args, is going to output the instance that triggers. So the name of the instance that triggered that particular event. Because if I click on maybe reset password, I want to know, okay, you want to reset password on which customer you want to do a password reset, right? And this is where the instance name, this is how I know which customer I'm targeting. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Relatively simple to build, and it shows this new capability, the concept of showing the same form multiple times, and the concept of targeting each instance of the form based on the name of that particular instance. Thank you.